Did you know that BDSM and kink are healthy outlets for aggression, imagination, and attention? Hi, and welcome to The Partition, home of kinky wellness. My name is Dana Slosser, and I'm a sexual wellness coach that dives deep into all things kinky. I'm here to show how BDSM and kink deserves a rightful spot within the sexual wellness conversation. So, let's talk about it. Welcome back to The Partition podcast. In episode 1, I told you why I truly love BDSM and kink. In this episode, I'm going to expand more on why I love rough and tumble play. I'll go over a childhood game I absolutely miss, why it's so important to play as adults, and how BDSM and kink became my personal playground. So, when I was a little kid, one of my favorite games was Red Rover. And for those of you who don't know what Red Rover is, or know it by another name, it's a game where two groups of kids face each other while holding hands. They kind of become a chain of children, I guess you could say. And each side takes turn calling over another kid. And the goal of the kid being called is to break the bond between the other children holding hands. And so, of course, the goal of the kids holding hands is to not let go. So it's a pretty simple game, but it's actually kind of barbaric. Well, at least at the elementary schools that I went to. Red Rover hurt like hell. And anybody who's played that game, I'm sure could tell you that they've had bruises and scratches, maybe a busted knee or a bent elbow, maybe even a twisted wrist or had their eye poked out. But this had to be one of my favorite childhood games. I don't know what it was or what it is about running full speed towards kids holding hands and trying to break it, but it really was so much fun. I liked the physical contact the game involved. The pain didn't bother me, and at the time I was still very interested with bruises. And life wasn't that stable at home, so it was never fun to be there. So even though this game was a bit brutal, it was one of the most fun things I could do at school. And Red Rover was a pretty decent substitute to blowing off steam for me. Seriously, I really did love breaking through two kids that were supposed to represent a stone wall. And it was a hilariously taunting game. If you didn't break the chain, kids would just start yelling and roasting each other. And if you didn't break the chain, well, good luck surviving the rest of the day without being mocked or something like that. But even that I liked because it was more drive to just run faster and just really try to break through that chain of kids. But eventually, yeah, that game hurt a little bit, maybe too many kids, and it was a pretty intense game. So it never took a really long time for the game to get shut down. I don't even think kids are allowed to play that game anymore, but regardless, the problem with childhood games is the same type of play that you can do as a child, you're not allowed to do anymore as adults. I understand that adults can't play certain games like Red Rover, just randomly on the street, but is it just me, or does anyone else think about running full speed towards a couple holding hands? Just to see. But even before that, when I was very small, I remember playing on the ground, rolling around, tumbling through man-made forts in my dad's living room, then getting dirty outside in some sort of adventure in the backyard. And wrestling other kids was normal for me. I don't think it was ever a problem at my dad's house. It was just something that kids would do. So when I wasn't able to play like this anymore, or at least when I wasn't able to play like this anymore at my mom's house, I felt like it was because I was a girl, and girls shouldn't be rough or tough or anything like that. But when I couldn't play like this anymore at my dad's house, it was because kids that age shouldn't do that anymore. The problem was I only went to my dad's house every other weekend. So one weekend we were able to play and everything was normal, and then the very next weekend we weren't allowed to play like that anymore because somehow over the 2 weeks we magically just got to that age or that phase of our childhood where kids couldn't wrestle like that anymore. And it's not like I didn't want to get into contact sports. I had asked my mom to join my brother's martial arts class, but she only let me join in on the free classes when they offered them, which made me even more mad because the things I wanted to do were always right in front of me, but I couldn't participate. So it seemed like I was trapped in this vicious circle. And what was even worse is the older I got, the types of play were changing. Playing outside started to turn into playing inside, and I found playing inside quite boring. Video games were coming around, which I wasn't really into, and I didn't use a cell phone during high school. So tech games just wasn't a big thing for me growing up. I think it helped that my dad was super low tech. I don't even think he had Wi-Fi in his house, and the only TV he had 10 channels, which were brought by steel rabbit ears, I guess we used to call them. I think we had like Omni 1 and 2, and that's about it. And since I didn't like being home or at my mom's place, I always ended up outside and roaming around with other people who didn't want to be home or had some time on their hands. Because eventually playing, which just isn't a thing in high school. I don't think you go around to your friend in high school. At least I didn't go to a high school where they're like, hey, do you want to play together still? It was more like, hey, we're going to a party. So I know that I had mentioned that when I first told my friends I wanted to watch BDSM porn videos, I got mixed reviews. Some thought it was funny, some got concerned, and some were curious, but not quite curious enough to have a real conversation about it. So BDSM was a lot of dead ends during high school to find someone to talk to about this, which ended up with me watching a lot of videos and not really talking to anyone about it or really digging into what I was watching. But that didn't stop me from bringing in what I was watching online into what I was doing with a partner. Of course, at the time, I didn't realize how dangerous that actually was. And although it's super easy to say something like Google it now, it wasn't like that back then. Like I didn't have like a phone to just like Google it. It's just like those old school text, hit the button 3 times for the 1 letter or something like that. But it wouldn't have mattered anyways, because incorporating rougher sex moves that I was watching made my sex more fun. All of a sudden, sex felt like roughhousing again, and I could wrestle. I could try to pin someone down, I could grab at someone, I could get that extra energy out and even get a bruise or two. But what I didn't know about rough sex is that it comes with rules, guidelines, and basic knowledge. Really? And I really didn't know what I didn't know. You know? Like, how am I supposed to know that there's rules and guidelines as a kid? It was only after I had randomly met someone in the BDSM and kink community that was willing to teach me the basics that I could grow my knowledge on sex through BDSM and kink specifically. But once I learned the basics, I was able to build any type of game I wanted. Kind of like deciding if I wanted to play a game like Red Rover and break through a human wall, or play a game like Tag, where I could just run away or catch someone. The problem is, I learned that not everybody wants to play the way I do, and that's okay, but finding a partner to play rough wasn't as easy as you may think. I've been in situations where my level of rough is a lot higher than my partner's, but I've also been in a situation where my partner's level of rough was much higher than mine. And back before I knew to ask for a demonstration, I kind of would just take people on their word, which caused a lot of unnecessary pain for everybody. Now I'm much more aware that playing rough isn't just a free-for-all or a Wild West type of energy where anything goes. There are definitely parts of our body that we should avoid. But in the same breath, there's parts of our bodies that are a lot stronger. But I have fucked up in the past. For instance, I remember doing a scene where I was using my body as a method of impact, and I was playing too rough in an area of the body where I should have been paying more attention to, and I ended up coming down too hard on my partner's chest, and I broke or sprained my partner's sternum, but honestly, all I heard was like a loud pop, and I just froze, and I was so like, oh my God, are you okay? And by the way, your sternum is in the middle of your chest below, kind of like below your rib cage. And this was definitely a case where I had seen someone do some sort of chest impact play in a video. And I did not know, at the time, I didn't know you couldn't go below a certain point yet. So after this happened, I knew I had to take more of an initiative to learn the different areas of our bodies that you can and cannot play with, and which body parts are safer and not so safer. I know that accidents happen and they will always continuously happen. But in the same breath, this was a mistake for my lack of education. Once I knew my impact basics, I was able to play a lot safer. And I think if I was in contact sports, I would have known this information, but that just wasn't the case. I don't know what it is about tumbling around on the ground with someone, but it's just fun. It's not that I love it enough to want to do it in a wrestling stage scenario where there's a coach and people watching. No, I like tumbling around in a private setting with just me and my partner in a fun play type situation. Now, there was a time where I didn't see sex as a type of play. It was just sex. But once I saw sex as a type of play that adults could do with each other, I was able to find people who like playing the same way I do. And by bringing that type of play and fun back into my life, it helped shake off the edge from the day. Like, I wish I could tell you that I'm not someone who's easily annoyed by things, but there are just so many things that annoy me out there, like waiting for the second bus, or someone cutting me off on a walkway, or my apartment fire alarm going off in the middle of the night for the third night straight. Like, any of these small annoying things that happen to me that are outside of my control just annoy me, but it's not enough to get super angry. But those little annoyances build up inside my nerves, and playing rough just shakes those micro stresses out of my skin, which helps me feel a lot lighter. When I can shake off those stresses of the day or wrestle them away, it gives me more mental headspace to face actual challenges of the day and the more difficult things that life throws at us. So when life does throw me an actual curveball, at least I have more mental headspace to deal with it. And to be frank, like, wrestling around on the ground is still fun. And I don't understand why someone wouldn't want to do something that brings them joy or is fun with them, especially because you're not actually hurting somebody in a vindictive or vicious way. By playing again, I'm able to see the world from a more playful mindset, and it lets me kind of see life as an adventure. And I think everyone needs an outlet to play, even if it's not through sex. Playing is still fun, and when you're having fun, at least you know you're smiling. Well, that's it for me. Let me know how you play. And if you're new here or to the BDSM scene, check out my e-learning video, BDSM Basics, at thepartition.life, where I make it easy to learn the basics of BDSM. Again, that's www.thepartition.life. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time. And as always, stay kinky.